Welcome back to our series on data handling for statistics. This is video number 3, where we're talking about coding in RStudio, and we're reviewing some of the basic functions that we talked about in Data Camp earlier in a course Introduction to R. So I wanted to walk through some of these in a little more detail, give you a little more practice, and maybe go into a little more information than you may have gotten in the data camp exercises. Okay, so as you can see, I've just finished the code along 2, so I have the information from that file here, and so I'm going to use Control L to clear the console, and I'm going to run this code here using Control Enter. And this time we're going to talk about vectors. And so we're going to hopefully go through this fairly quickly. So a vector is just more than one object put together, right? It's more than one thing chained together, so to speak. So we're going to start with vec1, and one of the ways that we make a vector or create a vector is using this function sequence. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type in SE, and I'm looking for Q for sequence, and then I'll click on it and select it, and here it says sequence generation, and we've got the usage here, and then we've got sequence from 1 equals, or from equals 1, to equals 1, by equals, and then they do the formula that they calculate. And what this is telling you, the equals here is saying that the default is 1. If you don't put in anything, it's assuming that it's 1 for the from, and the to, again, it's assuming 1. And then the by would be 2 minus from would be 1 minus 1 would be 0, divided by something would be 0, okay? And so if you just put sequence and leave it blank, you're probably going to end up with the number 1, all right? Then they've got a sequence for integer here. You can use that, but I never do. I always just 1 comma sequence 1 comma 10 or something like that, and then you don't even have to put the by because the default is going to be 1. All right. And so we've got, I did something a little different here. I went from 0.1 to 10.1, and my by is a half. So let's see what we get. And we get 0.1, 0.6, 1.1, 1.6, etc., all the way up to 10.1. And the class of vector is just going to say it's numeric. Okay, that's the type of data that's in there. Now the structure, str, says that it's numeric 1 to 21, so there's 21 elements in this vector, and it starts giving you the first ones until it goes to ... So it doesn't list everything out. Up here in our values, we see vec1, and it says numeric 1 to 21, and it starts listing the values. So exactly the same thing down here highlighted now. We see the start of that up here. Okay, so it's giving you the structure there in the environment. Another way that we can create vectors, is to use the rep function. So we'll repeat, this stands for repeat something, so X is what we want to repeat, and this is the number of times. Length out, we don't really use that very much, but you can, and if you want to see what that means, by all means, you can do that with the help, because length out is described right here. Okay. And then we have each equals 1. All right, so let's look at some examples here. I've got vec1a rep 1 to 3. So this is a sequence of numbers 1, 2, and 3. 1 to 3 is 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to repeat that 4 times. And so the length of this is going to be 12. There's 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. That's 3 numbers, times 4 is 12. And let's see what it looks like. This is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3 has been repeated 4 times. Now, VEC 1B, we're saying 1, 2, 3, but we're saying each is repeated 4 times. And when we do this, we're still going to see that the length is 12, but the vector is going to be very different. Now we have all the ones together. 4 ones, then 4 twos, then 4 threes. Each one is repeated 4 times. So that's the difference between times and each here. So you'll end up with the same elements, but they'll be in a different order. Now, vector functions. So to do this section, I created a vector randomly. Now, at this point, I'm not expecting you to know this or understand this, but I do want you to put this in your code along file. So set.seed, this is a technique we use in statistics to be able to repeat, to have randomness, yet also be able to come up with the same answer every time. So nothing in a computer is actually random. It's what we call pseudo-random. And what we can do is we can say, okay, we want to set the starting point for our randomness at 16,875. I just made up that number and just put it in there. Okay, so if I run this, then when I use this R norm, which is a random generation of a normal distribution, okay, so it's a random normal distribution, and I want 15 values, and I want the mean of the distribution to be 10 and the standard deviation to be 2. Well, if I didn't set this seed, every time I ran this code, I'd get 15 different numbers. But because I'm setting the seed, I will randomly generate 15 numbers, but every time I do this, I'll generate the same 15 numbers, okay? And so that is the reason for doing this, so that you get the same answer that I get. You're going to get the same vector that I get by doing this. So set seed and then vec1c. And let's print out vec1c. Vec1c, okay. And here are the values that we've got, okay. So no repeat numbers, right? No repeat numbers, but we've got numbers that are in the 9s here and here, and then we've got some numbers in the one number in the 7s, it looks like. 8, another 8, another 8, another 8, and then I see 10, 11, oh, another 10 here. So 11, 12, and a 13. Okay, so those are the values that we got. Now, we have some functions that we can use. Sort will sort in ascending order if you don't do anything else. Now, I didn't set this. Now, you'll see that vec1 is still in the original order because I didn't change vec1. I just simply sorted vec1 just to put it in order and printed it out. Here it is in order, okay? But I didn't change vec1. In order to change vec1, I'd have to say vec1c is equal to or is set to the sort, and then it would change, okay? But I didn't do that, and I'm not going to do that. I just sorted it. Now, that was in ascending order or increasing order, 7, 8, 8, 8.48, 8.57, 8.706, 8.716, etc., right? They're in increasing order or ascending order. If I want it in decreasing order, then I have to set decreasing or descending. I have to set decreasing to true. And now it prints out from largest to smallest. Now, if I want to count how many are in each of these, I can do this. I'm not going to get much. So it's going to be one of each because it's randomly selected. So let me change this to vec1a. And now you see there's table. Okay, so table of vec1a, the counts. Oh, so I've got 4 of value number 1, I've got 4 of value number 2, and I've got 4 of value number 3. which makes sense when we look at Vec 1A. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. We repeated 1, 2, 3 4 times, so each number has been repeated 4 times, and that's what this is saying. Okay, and then unique of 1A. So this is, again, this is a different vector, vec 1A, and the unique values are just 1, 2, and 3. Okay. All right. Now, it's very common that we want to create a empty vector and then fill it in during some operation or some coding operation. So how do you make an empty vector? Well, I'm setting vec2 equal to a vector, the vector function. So when I type, so here I type vec2, alt minus sign, and then I start typing vector, and then when I hit enter, you'll notice that, oops, vector, okay, oh, it's not showing up now. Sure. All right, so you'll see that it says mode equals quote logical unquote length equals 0L. Okay, so it tells you what, when you type a function like this, it usually tells you what the arguments are, and that's nice. That's one of the benefits, again, of RStudio that you don't get over the regular R GUI, graphical user interface. All right, so I set this as mode equals numeric, okay? And I think, let's see, so if we type in vector and go to that help, so mode, here, there's list, there's expression, there's any, let's see, and some, oh, here they are. The atomic modes are logical, integer, numeric. I could have a double, it's the same as numeric, complex, character, and something called raw we didn't talk about, and I won't talk about it. It's probably not something we need to worry about, okay, at this level. Okay, so here vec2 is now been created and it's empty. So let's print out vec2 and see what it has. It has zeros in there. And so by default, it's a bunch of zeros, all right? Now, if I said mode equals numeric and length equals 10, so there's 10 places here. And so they're all set to 0, okay, as a numeric, depending on what you set this to as to what it would be, all right? So if I set vec3 vector and I say mode equals character, length equals 10, and then I print that out, I get empty quotations, okay? So you may think because I said empty vectors, but I should say default vectors, but I'm going to leave it as empty. Zeros for numeric, not really empty. And empty characters, these are called the empty characters for the character type. Okay. And then we have something called a for loop. And here I'm going to put the square of the integers into the vector. So here's how we read the for loop. For I, and I can use any letter I want there. I could use a word. I could say vec 5 in. Okay, so I could make this anything that I want, really. I can instead of I could put a word there if I wanted to. And you'll see that, but then here I would have to put whatever I put here. All right, so whatever I'm using, I'd have to put that in there. Okay, so for I is in, 1, 2, and look, this is very safe. The length of the vector that I'm filling. Okay, so there's no way that I can end up with more or less spaces than I have in the vector, because I'm calculating the length of the vector. In this case, it should be 10 or 21. Let's see, vec 1. Oh, this is supposed to be vec 2. Excuse me, vec 2. Okay, so length of vec 2 is there. So vec 2, length of vec 2 is 10. All right. So I'm glad I checked that, because I had not changed this from vec 1 to vec 2. And then, so what we have is we have this parenthesis here. Whoops. And then we have the parenthesis for the length here. Okay. And then we have these brackets. And in this case, I don't have to use the brackets. I could just put this, I could just do this. Okay. I only have one expression, so I could just put it all on one line. But I like to do it consistently. And so what we're going to do in each of the loops, I put inside these curly brackets, and I can do more than one expression. I could type in vec 3 I is let's see, I'll have to do C. Let's see, C. Comma I, and there, comma. That might work. I'm not sure. I equals 1. Let's see if this works. No, it won't work. Okay, I won't mark that. Anyway, I could do more than one operation in each of the loops. So I'm going to start off with I equals 1, and I'm going to come down to vec, and in the first position, oops, didn't mean to do that. In the first position, I'm going to set that equal to 1 raised to the second power, 1 squared, so it's going to be equal to 1. And then I is going to be 2. And this will be the second spot in the vector, will be 2 squared, so that'll be 4. And then I will equal to 3, and the third place will be 3 squared, or 9, etc. So let's run this. And then we'll print out the vector. So I have 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared, whoops, 7 squared, 8 squared, 9 squared, and 10 squared. All right, and so that's what my expression did. Okay, so that is working with vectors. I hope that I've given you a little bit more information than you had when you worked with DataCamp. Also, just a little more experience with it, and not using that DataCamp console and interface, but actually using RStudio. Okay, so please put your Code-Along3 file, upload that to Moodle in the proper submission spot, and please stay safe, take care of yourself, have some fun this summer, and we will see you next time.